If you are intentional with your capacity and you're intentional with having multiple streams of income and having multiple ways that people can work with you, if you're intentional with that, you're going to start to feel a more steady state in your business throughout the entire year. And of course, there's going to be like, oh, this week I only got one inquiry, or I didn't get any inquiries. And that's going to be okay because you know that you have other spaces that money is coming in.
Hey there, and welcome to the Event Crushed podcast. Each week, we'll be chatting about all things wedding industry, entrepreneurship, and how to crush it in life and business. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Event Crushed podcast. This is your host, Becky. And we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this podcast, which is so crazy. I do not understand how it's been a year already, but it's so exciting. So I hope you'll tune in next week for a solo episode. It'll be something a little bit different. So I hope that you will tune in for that. But today I have episode 53, and this is actually the first time that I am bringing on a repeat guest. So of all 52 episodes so far, it has been a different guest every single time, or it was just me. And this is the first time I'm bringing a guest back on, which is so cool. And so my guest today, you might remember her from episode 14. I also reshared this episode at one point because it was one of the most popular episodes I've ever done. And it's Aislinn McKenna, who is a mindset and business coach for wedding pros and creatives. So if you haven't listened to episode 14, I highly recommend going back and giving that a listen. That will give you some context for what we are getting into today. She has so much great insight on mindset for wedding pros and how we can adjust our mindset to be able to make changes in our business to improve and better ourselves and better our businesses. So a little background on Aislinn. You can also call her Ace if you would like. She spent over 14 years as a luxury wedding photographer before she retired from that career and then transitioned into her role as a full-time business and mindset coach for wedding pros. Like I mentioned, her deep understanding of both the creative and business sides of the wedding industry gives her a truly unique perspective, and it absolutely shines through in our conversation today. So today we're picking up right where we left off from episode 14. We're diving back into the most common mindset struggles that wedding pros are facing right now. And we're going to talk about why slow seasons aren't always something to fear, how to avoid burnout, and what it might actually be signaling. And we're also going to talk about practical ways to simplify your life and business. Plus, Aislinn shares some of her favorite mindset mantras that you'll want to keep close for the days you need a little extra encouragement. If you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just a little out of alignment lately, this conversation is exactly what you need. All right, let's dive in. Hey, Aislinn, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you back on again.
Becky, thank you so much for letting me come back on. I had a blast on our last mindset episode, so I know today is going to be super fun. So thank you for having me here.
Of course. When I had you on the first time, it was kind of in the early days of my podcast. I believe it was episode 14. So it's pretty early on. And we talked about overcoming wedding pro mindset challenges. And so today we are kind of going to tack on to that topic and just talk a bit more about some wedding pro mindset challenges. And so I'm really curious to hear what you're going to share. And before we jump into that, though, I would love it for anyone who didn't listen to that first episode. I would love if you could just share a little bit about what you do in the wedding industry. And if you want to share anything about your coaching programs, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi guys, my name is Aislinn. You can call me Ace, which is the exact intro I went with every single wedding that I ever did. And every single groomsman, whoever was like, Ace, this is perfect. We'll call you that. So if you want to, you're welcome to call me Ace if you'd like to. I was a luxury wedding photographer for about 14 years. So I started my company when I was 16 years old. I first started doing like seniors and like family portraits and then started to move into weddings. And over the years, I got into the luxury space. I was shooting weddings between like 10 and 17K towards the end of my career. And I think like some of the biggest things that I was doing in the wedding industry that was so different than what other people were doing was just making connections across the country. Like Becky and I, we do not live in the same state. We don't even live like on the same side of the country. And like this connection has been so beautiful and so wonderful. That's the kind of thing that I was really known for in the wedding industry, was like knowing people basically all over the country. So these days I have retired from weddings. I have retired from photography completely. Like I don't have equipment anymore. I don't shoot weddings anymore. I now coach other photographers and creatives. And one of the best things that I help my clients with is mindset, and specifically like how to sell luxury services, how to work with clients without getting into the mind drama that the wedding industry loves to perpetuate, and how to like have a business that is a win for you and a win for your clients. So I love what I get to do. I get to help other wedding professionals have the business of their dreams. And it's like truly like the best thing ever.
Yes, I love it. It does sound like a dream. And it's just, you're so good at what you do. And you're also so like, you can tell how passionate you are about what you do. And just like, I don't know, whenever I see you posting online, like it comes through in everything that you share. And you can tell like that you really, really love what you do. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that that carries through from my wedding industry days, because I loved what I did as a wedding photographer, like getting to connect with other people, getting to create an incredible experience for other people while it not being at my detriment was one of the things that I loved doing. And I got to carry that into the coaching world and into like my coaching business, and making sure that like I get to help people have like their highest sales ever, and they get to feel good in business, and it's not at my detriment. Like it's actually like a win for me as well. And so it's really a big deal for me to like make sure that like what I'm doing is always in alignment with my values, but also it's like in alignment with making sure that the experience is incredible for everyone.
Oh, that's so cool. So for our conversation today, I kind of wanted to start with seeing if, since our last conversation, if you have noticed like any shifts in mindset struggles that wedding pros are facing currently, or if you feel like it's kind of just more of the same, or have you seen anything like any new challenges popping up that wedding pros might be dealing with?
Yeah, absolutely. So because I coach wedding professionals and it's a lot of photographers, like I hear everything. Somebody told me today, they're like, I am the biggest people pleaser that you will ever meet. And I was like, do you know how many people have said that to me, have said that to my face? Like right. So many people. And a lot of times, like, it's really interesting because people think that their problems are so unique. And it's not that like your problems are like not valid. They are. But they're not unique as much as we think they are, because when we think like, oh, my problems are like my problems, nobody else has these problems, we get into this space of like, my problems aren't solvable. Versus when we think about like, hey, somebody else has experienced this before. Somebody else has gone through this before. Maybe they actually figured out a solution. What's the solution? That's a very different mindset. So as far as like what some of the struggles that are coming up, it's usually the same culprits over and over and over again. They're just kind of disguised differently. So some of the big ones that I see like really often are, my market is too saturated. That one just like blows my mind. I was in the wedding industry for 14 years. I moved my company 5 different times. Market's not too saturated. If you are one of one, the market is not too saturated. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn how to do that for yourself. The next one that I see like pretty often is raising my prices is too scary. No one's going to buy. Mm-hmm. This is a mindset problem that I see all the time. And it's like, once you know how to actually raise your prices, and once you know the mindset of like, there are clients at every single price point. There are clients at every single level. They're looking for exactly what you offer. Once you have that mindset, like it starts to be like kind of less scary to actually raise your prices. And then like the other culprit I see literally all the time is, I have to do this very specific thing in order to be successful. So sometimes this shows up as, I have to be doing videos of myself where I talk to the camera in order to have the business that I want. I have to be doing TikTok videos in order to have the business I want. I have to do drone footage in order to have the business I want. And we take these like shoulds and we take these like have tos and we place them like on a pedestal. And like, we're like, the only way I'm going to be successful is if I do these things. And the truth is like, that's not it at all. Like, you can have the business you want and it feel in alignment with like your values without having to do talking to the camera reels or drone footage or TikTok or whatever else you place on a pedestal. So as far as things that are like, what are they facing? Like, what are wedding pros facing? It's the same stuff, just disguised differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I love all the points that you brought up and like all things that I have seen and also all things that I at one point or another have experienced myself. So definitely have been there, especially like the should, like, oh, I should be doing this, or you just see other people doing it. So you start comparing and think, well, they're doing it and they're successful, so therefore I must do it too. And that can be, not a healthy place, not a great mindset to get stuck in. So I think that's a really big one for people to kind of figure out their own way and realize that they don't need to be looking to what other people are doing and finding what's actually working for them. And I also think in kind of the education space, like there are people who I see a lot of, it's like, this is the way to do it. And if you don't do it this way, then you're not going to be successful. And I think that can be really dangerous too. And I try, on my podcast and in the content that I'm sharing, like I never want to come at something in a way that it's like, this is the only way. You must do this or you're going to fail, because there's a million different ways to do things. And so I think it's important that people realize that and recognize that there is no one size fits all for your business, for your marketing, for so many aspects of things. There is no one size fits all. And yeah, it's a good reminder and something we all need to remember.
Yeah. And it's something I talk to my clients in my coaching spaces all the time about is like, I don't want you looking at the other people inside of the space and going, well, Sarah did it this way, so I have to do it that way. And this is why I give such customized coaching to my clients, because the advice I give to one client is very likely not going to be the advice I give to you. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because like, it's not going to be in alignment with what I know you value and what your goals are that you told me are important to you. So if you're like, oh, I have to take on more weddings because that's like the only way I'm going to be successful, I think it's really important to just like watch what you're pedestaling as the only way for me to get this thing is this one way. It's a very like narrow space to hold yourself in. And it's always going to feel like you're bumping up against the sides versus this space of like, you know what? I don't have to know the how. And I don't have to know the timing of things in order for me to be in alignment with what I'm choosing and be in alignment with what I'm creating. And that's a much more like empowering space to be creating from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. So my next question for you is having to do with kind of slow seasons, which I think we are coming out of, thankfully. Well, not thankfully, but we're coming out of, and we're coming into a new season that, here where I am at in the Pacific Northwest, we're heading into our busier season. But I know for a lot of people during kind of the off season this year, like I heard from many wedding pros that things felt slower in terms of inquiry and business, and not everybody, certainly, but there definitely was increase in kind of some concern for people and not getting as much inquiries or business. And I know that like going through a season like that can be pretty tough on one's mindset, because you start thinking of all the things of like, well, why is it slower? Why am I not getting the inquiries? Why does it seem like other people are and I'm not? And so I was just curious if you had any advice on how wedding pros can deal with those moments when maybe the inquiries are down, and how they can just kind of like keep things positive and move forward.
Yeah, I have a couple different angles from this. And I think the very first thing I want to say is that it's all temporary. Mm-hmm. The highs that you feel are temporary. The busy season you feel is temporary. The season where it feels like nobody's like looking for wedding photographers or looking for wedding planners, that's temporary. The lows are temporary. And so sometimes we can get into this space where like during busy season, we have all these like dopamine hits and we have all this chaos and all of this stuff and people need you and you're getting emails all the time. And you're like, okay, this is normal. This is what I have to normalize right now. And then when things slow down, we're like trying to almost like fill the space because we're trying to get back to that same like dopamine hit and chaos that we feel during busy season. So one of the things I want you to think about is like in the slow season, are you actually forgetting what it feels like in the busy season? And in the busy season, are you forgetting what the slow season feels like? So that's the first thing. I kind of want to like start there. The second thing I would say is I want to encourage you to stop thinking about your business like it's slow season versus busy season. if you are intentional with your capacity and you're intentional with having multiple streams of income and having multiple ways that people can work with you, if you're intentional with that, you're going to start to feel a more steady state in your business throughout the entire year. And of course, there's going to be like, oh, this week I only got one inquiry or I didn't get any inquiries. And that's going to be okay because you know that you have other spaces that money is coming in. But if weddings are your only source of income, I highly recommend that you either take on corporate work, you take on branding sessions, you take on family mini sessions. Like that's like on the photographer side. I want you to diversify your income and stop making it that it's only okay for money to come in this one very, very specific way. Otherwise, I'm not okay with it. I think it's important to like recognize that like money is always trying to come to you. Clients are always trying to come to you. Like we need to open up the pathways for that to happen. So that would be my encouragement to wedding pros out there.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love the idea of just like, it wants to come to you and you just have to open up the pathways a little bit. That's a great way to think about it. And I have to share like a really quick story about what you were talking about forgetting, because I think that is so true. Like, especially, so this is kind of in the sense of inquiries and leads, but I had somebody, so I sell this, it's like a Google Sheet, like lead tracker, so that you can track all the different sources that your leads are coming in and when they come in, and you can track kind of where they're moving through the process, all that good stuff. And somebody got this lead tracker and she said she put all of her 2024 leads into it too. So she wasn't just going to use it for this year. She wanted to go back and see last year. And before she did that, she was really stressed out because she was like, well, like it felt really slow and inquiries weren't coming in. And she was thinking that last year, this time had been busy with inquiries and everything. But until she went back and she actually put all of her inquiries in and saw when they came in, she realized, oh, like this was also a slow time last year. And so it's not that big of a deal. There's like, she got most of her leads in like the springtime. And so anyways, I think we do totally forget. And it's sometimes, having that data to remember and realize, oh yeah, like things, and things ebb and flow. And it's like you said, it's temporary. I think that's such a good reminder too, because when we're in it, like when you're in something, you don't think of it as temporary. You're like, oh, this is just what it is now. And it's going to be slow forever. And it just feels like it's hard, but when you remember, oh yeah, this is temporary. I'm going to come out of this. There's going to be a new season coming. It's just, yeah, I love that. So I loved all of your mindset shifts that we can incorporate.
Yeah. And I have two more things I think like would be really good to like hear on this topic. Number one, facts versus feelings will like help you so much. So one of the things that Becky just said was that she had a client who had her tracker around leads, and the client was coming up with this like story in her head and feeling a certain way because of the story in her head. But when you can actually back it up with data, you're able to kind of like almost like show your brain and show like your mind, like the evidence and the proof of like, hey, it's actually okay. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's actually okay to chill right now. So a lot of times like we get into, and I see wedding pros who don't track data and like don't look at like and analyze like their leads and like where things come from. And I'm like, okay, well, like if you were doing that, you would be able to like analyze like, what to do next. But right now you're just letting your brain run rampant with like stories of like how scary this is, versus if you had data, you're actually able to make informed decisions. So that's the first thing. And then like the second thing I would say about this is like, this is probably going to call some people out. That's okay. During the times that you have more on your plate, like that doesn't mean you need to stop doing the things that schedule future revenue and schedule future clients. And I'm not talking about like, like never worry about busy season or like slow season. Just like throughout the entire year, we should still be doing marketing stuff the entire year, networking stuff the entire year, even when we're busy, instead of it just being like, okay, it's slow season. It's time to work on my entire business. It's like, let's like maybe like, make the workload like the entire year instead of just like a couple months of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true.
I think we've all fallen into that as creatives at some point.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Okay. So we're kind of going to change directions a little bit with this next question, but I feel like it does play into all of this. How does mindset play into avoiding burnout, which is something that we hear about a lot in the wedding industry, because people like go real hard because they love it, and they're like, let's go. And then they end up with 50 weddings and they're exhausted and they're burnt out. And so do you have any mindset hacks for wedding pros who might be struggling with boundaries and or work-life balance?
The first thing I would say to this is say no. Say no. Like, make your no mean something, make your yes mean something. If you're going to say yes to a wedding, make it mean something. If you're going to say no, make it mean something. So I think that's the first little thing I would say there. The second thing I would say there is like, be really mindful of what you are determining as burnout and what you're tagging as burnout, because sometimes it's not burnout. Sometimes it's misalignment. Or sometimes it's like you have too many admin tasks and you're not able to work on your business task in your business. So just be really mindful of like what you're considering burnout and if it actually is or isn't. If you are struggling with burnout and you're like, hey, yeah, it actually is. I promise you, hand raised, like it definitely is burnout. One of the things that I have recommended to my clients in the past, I did a podcast episode about this a while back, is simplify everything. If you are in burnout right now, a lot of times burnout can kind of look like your nervous system is getting to a point of like, it's hard to get out of bed. You freeze at every single like email that comes in. Making decisions is really hard. That can be one of the ways that it can present itself. If that's you, the thing I want you to do is simplify everything. I want you to simplify your meals. If you need to like do takeout every single day and it's the same order every single day in order to simplify the choices that you have in your day, do that. If you need to only answer emails for 1 hour a day, do that. If you need to say no to networking events, do that. You need to simplify and take out some of the choices that are happening for you right now, because like the brain is a computer. And when we have too many tabs open, it's inefficient. And the brain does not like inefficiencies. So when you are in freeze or you're in burnout, we need to take some of those choices out of the equation because they're very like data heavy. They're very like inefficient for the brain to be running, for you to be trying to make different decisions. We need to take some of that out. So that's the first thing I would say about burnout. But I want to hear like your thoughts on burnout.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with what you just said about simplifying. I mean, I think that is a fantastic piece of advice and can also cover like so many areas, because you kind of mentioned, you mentioned some business related and some personal related, like it can be meals, it can be, doing emails 1 hour a day. There's so many ways that you can simplify your life. But like I'm not burnt out, but I just have been feeling overwhelmed. And that's definitely a place where like I get at times. And so that's what I'm doing right now is I'm like, what can I remove from my schedule? Like, that's what I do when I feel crazy overwhelmed. I just see I look at my day and I'm like, is there anything that I can move to a different day? Or is there anything that I could, if I needed to like reschedule something? Because sometimes it's a matter of like not having enough. You had mentioned, not having enough time to do the actual like back end tasks of my business that need to get done in order to run the business. But then there's all the client work and all the just things I have to do every single day. And so trying to balance that is always, can always be a challenge. So yeah, but no, I completely agree with you. And I as someone who is a wife and a mom and has a business and works from home, like it's definitely a topic that comes up a lot. And I love talking about burnout and work-life balance, but I don't think I'm an expert necessarily, because I think sometimes I do it really, really well. And I feel like my life is super balanced and I'm like, yeah, I got this. And then like 2 weeks go by and I'm like, I literally can't, like, I feel like I can't do anything because I just am so overwhelmed with the number of tasks I have to get done. But I also have to feed my family tonight. And I also have to take my kids to this thing. And I also need to like be there for my husband, like, so it can be, I would say like it ebbs and flows. And sometimes I'm crushing it. And sometimes I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. And I will say, I'll give you guys a little bit of an exercise, which I think will help both Becky and the audience as well. So I think the first thing I want to say to this is if you are experiencing burnout, or if what Becky just like said really resonated with you, like you're a mom, like you are a wife, you're a business owner, like you are like just kind of drowning in task right now, I want to give you the permission slip that it's okay to let some things drop for a period of time. If like one of those things needs to drop, it's okay for you to like not make a 5-course meal for dinner tonight. It's okay. I promise. The kids are fed. That's all that needs to happen. Like, it's okay if that email doesn't get answered in the next 5 minutes. It can get answered at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, or it can get answered at 11 p.m. tonight and you can schedule it for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I want to give you guys like a little bit of permission slips that if you are running into burnout, we don't need to pile shame or judgment on top of those things. So I'll give you guys a little bit of an exercise and a little bit of kind of like a like personal anecdote here. So I am currently running a 6-figure business, a coaching business. And I am also currently in consultations for hip surgery. So I I don't know when I'm going to be getting hip surgery, but I've been like to a bazillion different doctor's appointments and MRIs and x-rays and all the things. There has been so many things lately that have felt like, wow, I'm doing a lot of things and I'm trying to juggle things that I normally feel like aren't that heavy to juggle. So I sat down with my husband like a couple of nights ago and I was like, hey man, like we got to figure this out. Like we have to figure this out because I'm feeling frustrated by all of the admin tasks that we have on our day to day and our plate that feel both urgent and important. And I don't actually know if they are urgent and important, but I've been kind of playing at the fact that I think that they might be urgent and important. So the Eisenhower matrix will help you so much. And this is a practical example of how to use it. So the Eisenhower matrix is like a 4 grid and it's urgency and important, not urgent, not important. So a lot of times what happens as creatives, especially if you have a neurospicy brain, we think like, oh, this email came up, the entire world is on fire and I have to answer it immediately. I want you to ask yourself if it actually is urgent and important, because if it's not, there are things that we can do to take it off our plate, or we don't have to treat it like it's urgent. So what we did was like, basically we asked ourselves, like we sat down and we looked at like how we were framing things. Are we framing this as urgent and important? And if it's actually not, then it's a perspective thing. So what we did was like, I got into this perspective of like, I'm actually so grateful that I've been able to see a surgeon so quickly. I'm actually so grateful that we got a tax return, even though it took hours and hours and hours for us to put it together. I'm actually so grateful that I have like podcast interviews on my schedule. Burnout comes from a couple different things, but one of the things it comes from is having too many things on your plate that are both unaligned, or they need to be decluttered, or your perspective needs to change on it. So asking yourself the question of like, is this urgent? Is this important? Is really going to help you kind of like decide, is this actually aligned with something that needs to stay on my schedule?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I didn't know that was the name of it, but I was like fishing over here because I did that several months ago. I didn't know it was called, do you say Eisenhower matrix?
Yeah, it's the Eisenhower matrix.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we like wrote it out and urgent, not urgent. And everything I wrote, well, no, a lot of it I wrote was in urgent and then a lot of it was in not urgent, but none of it was not important. So it was like, couldn't take anything off, but I could definitely delay things, which was really nice to see. Cause like you said, we think like everything's urgent. We're like, we have to get this done. But in reality, a lot of it's not. And it's totally fine if we bump it out. So
yeah. There's a theory that ADHD brains see time as vertical rather than horizontal. So we see things as stacking on top of each other. So everything becomes urgent.
Oh, interesting.
And so when you flip it and you're like, oh, I could actually give myself more time on this, it takes away some of that urgency that you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. That's super interesting.
Yeah, I think it was my therapist that shared that.
Yeah. Okay, I have one final question for you before we wrap up today. So do you have a go-to mindset mantra or phrase that you always come back to when you need like a boost?
Yeah, I actually have several. And I want to remind you guys of the one that I said a little while ago where I was talking about like everything is temporary, the highs and the lows. There's actually like kind of a secondary piece to that. So everything is temporary, the highs and the lows. I am someone who is capable of being okay no matter what. Meaning basically in the highs, I'm okay. In the lows, I'm okay. I trust myself and I've got myself. That's like one of the biggest ones I always come back to. One of my other ones that I've been using a lot lately and it's been really, really good is show me how good it gets to. So like, show me how good it gets to be when I'm booked out and happy in my business. Show me how good it gets to be when I book that next client or I reach that next milestone. It's just like a really good one to kind of bring yourself back. I also really love the more I take care of myself, the more my business takes care of me. That one's always just a really like, it's a good reminder of like, we got to take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Our business like can be healthy and happy and wonderful. We also, as humans, get to be healthy, happy, and wonderful. So making sure that like the health of yourself is like just as important as the health of your business. And then my favorite one, this one always just kind of like brings me back into a space of gratitude is people love to hire me. And it's a blessing to work with really wonderful people in the world and connect with really incredible people in the world. And I'm so unwaveringly grateful for the work that I get to do here. I think that's like just like a really powerful one for me of like, whenever I get kind of whiny or feeling like burnout, I'm like, you know what? Most people don't get to do what they love like every day for their career. So like how grateful am I that I chose this, but I also like am privileged to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love all of those. And I think that just the reminder of gratitude, like gratitude is such a grounding thing. And whenever we can bring it back to being grateful for what we have, our businesses that we are getting to live our dream, basically. I mean, I feel the same way with my planning business, and I love it so much. And I know that not everyone gets to work from home and raise their kids and plan weddings for a living. And I'm so grateful for that. And whenever I start feeling overwhelmed, like I have been a little bit lately, when I remind myself of that, it takes me back. So yeah, so important.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're ever feeling like you need a boost, that one right there is just it's so cheesy to be oh, just be grateful. But if you actually sit with yourself for a minute and say you know what, I actually am really grateful that I have a business that allows me to do X, Y, and Z. There's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much, Aislinn. This was awesome. I feel like listeners are going to leave feeling super encouraged. I know I'm feeling super encouraged and ready to go simplify everything. And I'm feeling great right now. So I know that anyone listening is also probably feeling that way. So thank you so much for your time. And where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram at Aislinn Eileen Coaching. That's pretty much where I live and breathe. You can go find me there. You'll probably see pictures of my dogs. You'll see pictures of me hanging out in my house. I live in the mountains, so occasionally you'll see me go hiking. So that is primarily where you can find me. I am on Threads occasionally, which is kind of fun. Also at Aislinn Eileen Coaching. If you do want to work together, I'm sure Becky will have this in the show notes, but I have a couple different spaces for wedding professionals, depending on what you're trying to do. So I have a signature program. If you're trying to get to that 6K or 6-figure mark, I have a space where if you're trying to scale a coaching business or trying to scale multiple businesses, I have a mastermind for that. But most people are going to end up in my mindset membership, which is a monthly membership where you get to listen to me riff on these things every single week. And you'll have different action steps and different activations that are really going to help you just get into a space of being a empowered creative, because I think there's so many places in the wedding industry that don't necessarily do that. I really wanted to create a space that did.
Amazing. Well, so many great resources. I'll definitely link all of that in the show notes so everyone can check out what you have to offer. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Event Crushed podcast. I hope you found value in this episode, and if you did, please consider sharing it with a wedding industry friend. We also hope you'll consider leaving a rating or review for the show to help other listeners find it. This podcast is edited and produced by Ace Sound Design. If you're looking to elevate your audio experience, their info can be found in the show description. As always, thank you for listening, and please connect with us on Instagram if you haven't already. Now get out there and crush it.